What's happening? What's going on?
Oh, just a fuck. What's today? Thursday? Just another Thursday.
Today is another
It's
Thursday
another Thursday.
in the wonderful world of Mojo
Someone's
Break.
got the case of the Thursdays.
So I wanted you. We were talking the other day about the NFT space and cards and how the two cross pollinate in the future of that. And I thought it might make some good content for us to just kind of talk about that topic. And people were probably interested in your guys' thoughts about that because of what you guys do in that business. Where do we want to start? It's a big topic, man. I've been doing a lot of research on it.
I mean, maybe just educating because I don't know
Yeah.
about it.
So what I think because I don't know if we really need to really dive into the nitty gritty like
Of what it
is. I think we should get as broad as possible.
No, I
right?
was actually wanted to pull up the line by line hex code.
Yeah,
No,
and
maybe not that, but I still don't. I don't understand.
I want to
non-fungible
know
token
what
means.
I want to know is generally an NFT, right? There's an NFT, and then there is how does an NFT become an NFT? It needs a blockchain attached to it, correct? Is that the difference between like
Correct.
a JPEG and an NFT? It needs to have some kind of digital ledger attached to it.
That's correct. Yeah. The visual presentation is nothing more than that. It's just a visual representation of the underlying smart contract that's housed in the blockchain, typically Ethereum at this point. There are a bunch of other ones that are sort of runners up to Ethereum, but Ethereum is the main blockchain that is responsible for NFTs at this point.
Okay. Interesting. So
and that is what, there's a lot of like meme hate going on right now. Funny ones about like people are like, you're an idiot for buying NFTs. Like I'll just take a picture of your NFT and now I own that NFT. And then people getting like furious about that because it's kind of funny because even the people that are buying the NFTs, I think inherently don't understand their value because they're like getting trolled and then they're getting upset about it. But if you understand the technology behind the NFT, it's like it's the silliest argument because the picture that's associated with the NFT is only just a visual representation of the intangible tangible, which is the smart contract and the agreement and ownership that is in the blockchain behind the NFT.
Okay. That is what I want to dive into.
Yeah.
Sure. I want to talk about that because
that's where the juice is.
Yeah.
That's where the really exciting stuff is for any industry. Yeah. So, to Dan's point, there's a lot of different facets of NFTs. Now, part of it is that piece of art, right? And that's what's really kind of interesting about an NFT is an NFT is the first space on the internet for physical ownership, right? Because everything else, when I was watching this thing earlier today, it's like when you think about it, like all your passwords and all the assets that you own on the internet are really controlled by third-party entities. Like you can say you own your Twitter profile, you can say you own your Facebook profile, but what happens when they don't like you? It's gone.
Right.
See you later. They can delete it overnight, right? So NFTs are this ability for you to own something in the digital space. So there's that. Then there's the fact that it is backed in a smart contract. And so smart contracts as a topic and as a concept, the possibilities of that are endless. Because what it does is what a smart contract is it's a contract between you and a purveyor of goods and services, but it takes out that middleman contract holder. It takes out the car dealership, for instance, right, is a great way to look at it, that has to possess the contract and hold it for you, right? Like there's just or like maybe like a third-party mortgage company. It's just now it's direct transactional behavior. So you've got that. Then on top of both of those things, you do have the intrinsic value of the fact that you're collecting art. So there is this sort of flex status to it, right? Like for instance, there's a lot of these top ranking NFT purveyors right now are actually like hosting events where you can only get in if you show proof in the Ethereum blockchain that you genuinely own one of their NFTs. and I forget which one it was, but one just recently had an exclusive party on a yacht because they're selling these things for hundreds of thousands of dollars. And they invited only owners of their NFT to this thing, and there was this huge gala event. That's the, and so, but to your point, it doesn't take a rocket scientist. Now, you may not understand the technology behind it, and I think a lot of purveyors of NFTs don't probably, and you don't really need to. It's just, but it doesn't take a genius business person to see the possibilities in what I just described, right?
Makes sense.
Yeah,
because and I just listened to a thing today too where Twitter is going to start having a validation process, because the hot thing with NFTs right now is that everybody puts them in their profile picture, right? Well, as it stands, it's like easy. You could just take a JPEG and put it there and say that that's yours. You could be fake flexing. Well, Twitter is going to start having an Ethereum validation. So you can start having a check mark next to that $200,000 NFT that you have as your profile pic. Genius.
That is genius. Yeah, because I have seen those apes, people rocking those pictures of the apes.
Apes are the ones that hosted the party.
Now,
there is CryptoPunk is another one that's pretty big, right?
Another huge one. Yep. Selling now at Christie's auction house, right? So now physical art vendors and physical art auctioneers are now getting into the digital space.
So how do we know that these companies that are hosting it, if they go out of business, how does this still survive? Does another company take it over?
Well, and that's kind of what's rad about it, right? Is that who hosts it, who hosts the forum in which the transaction takes place, and then who hosts the secondary transaction and the third transaction, it's all irrelevant, because unlike a piece of physical art, which can be duplicated and counterfeit, and you don't know, and there's all kinds of YouTube and Netflix documentaries about counterfeit physical art. As long as Ethereum blockchain exists as an entity, that piece, that NFT exists in validation. Right. So anything that hosts it secondarily to sell or buy it is just a third party. That's the middleman right there, is just the one that's saying, okay, you can come put your $300,000 NFT on my website and sell it to, or auction it to the next person, right? But unlike if I have a Mona Lisa and I sell it to you for, $1 billion, and then you turn around and 5 years later, you sell it to the Smithsonian for $7 billion. I, as the original owner that it sold to you, I don't get a commission on that sale. It's a done deal. Not with NFTs, because it's a smart contract. So you can bake in lifetime royalties, a succession chain. So the originator can continue to make money off of that as that NFT changes hands over the course of history.
The originator as the person who first purchased it, or the originator as the person who made the NFT?
The person that made the NFT.
Okay.
So the person that set.
So let's spin it. Let's spin it in a way where either artist or we could actually put a music artist in this as well. Like, let's say they make a album cover limited edition NFT, and in the smart contract they say, we get a piece of every time this goes to a different owner. Every time it's sold to a different owner, we get a 2%. We get 2% on every transaction goes back to us, because it is truly our art. It's our
IP.
Yeah.
And what's typically the percentage on something like that? Is it 2%? Is it 5%?
I threw that 2% out there. I have no idea.
It is 10.
10.
10 is the default percentage that the biggest NFT minting / auction online forum is like. If you go on there and you put a picture of your dog on there, because it allows you to mint NFTs, right? So it basically just puts the code line into the blockchain, and then it uses your picture of your dog or your kid as the token symbol for that. That's what an NFT is, right? So it gives you all these parameters. Does you want it to be a one of a kind? Do you want to make, you can tell it how many copies of that you want, which then also affects the value, right? Because if it's a one of one and it's one of those apes and it's a one of one, those are the ones that are going for $400,000 or $500,000, or the ones that they intentionally only made one of. Right. So you see also how if you're a popular artist / musician / whatever, you can create scarcity and a marketplace, because you can make 80,000 of chimp A and 2 of chimp B. And then you can say chimp B is worth $400,000, and you just created value, right? So you can set how many volume wise you want to create of that thing, and you can set what your secondary consistent royalty would be.
Now, what if it sells for less than it sold initially? Do they still get the 10% of the sale if it sells for under?
Yeah. As I understand it,
yeah,
you would just get 10%. And so you can, for instance, Gary Vee's big on NFTs. All these forward-thinking entrepreneurial people are. And so Gary Vee, for instance, because that dude always, he impresses me on how he can take an already pretty new, complex thing and he can make it even more unique.
Mm-hmm.
And because he does so well and is kind of so wealthy, he's only taking 9% on his NFTs, and then he's taking 1% and donating it to a different charity every year.
Interesting.
So he's got a great HR piece there, a PR piece there, and and he's doing all kinds of crazy shit, because another side of the NFT game is that because it's a contract, it's not only contractually an advantage for the minter or the artist, it can also be a great way to put underlying value for the purchaser in it. So it's not just a piece of art. For instance, Gary Vee minted all these different tokens, and then depending on which token it was, he did all these little kind of animal doodles, and then they had these funny like nursery rhyme names. And then certain ones had certain things. Like one, if you bought the Oh Owl or something, he only made 5 of those. But if you buy one, you get to go to every keynote event he does for the rest of your life. So there's intrinsic value and there's theoretic value, right? Because it's like, dude, there's people that would pay God knows how much money to have that. So you don't only just get a keynote invitation, you get green room access to every keynote. So you basically get, and he said it on this podcast, he's like, if you buy that, you're basically become my homie. He's like,
right.
You're going to be like a deadhead of Gary Vee.
Wow.
I'm going to see you at every freaking event I do. And so his biggest fear, and it's a really valid point, is that what if some whale, because you don't buy NFTs in cash dollars, you buy them in Ethereum. So there are inherently people that are massively Ethereum rich that may not even be physical dollars rich. Right. Yet. In theory, they're billionaires, but they haven't cashed out or whatever, right? So what if some Ethereum whale just comes and buys all his product? All of a sudden now they ostensibly own part of Gary Vee's business because of the value.
Now, could they sell it and then the other person could go to the green room then at that point?
So that right now, that question from all the things I've watched is the biggest thing everyone's trying to figure out. How do you transition that non-tangible value? Like, how do you do that? How do you burn the, because the short answer in my brain is no, right? Not everybody gets it. It's got to go to just the first person that, because the reason why you're asking for that value is because they're believing in that thing enough to pay for it.
Right. But then what if all of a sudden Gary Vee's appearances are worth more and you're like, hey, I bought this for, let's say 200,000, but somebody's willing to give me 500,000, but they want to know, they can go see Gary Vee or whatever, for that price.
Well, and that's the thing, right? It's not even the art in that scenario. So what I guess my point is, like, what it starts becoming is there's tokens where the art itself, a Banksy verified one-of-a-kind NFT, because of that art will be worth millions, right? But then there will be these more utilitarian token where it doesn't matter. It could just be a orange square.
Mm-hmm.
It's what's in the smart contract
that
becomes extremely valuable.
Yeah, and it's crazy because we just talked about the artist or whoever makes the IP, the initial NFT, but then you were talking about the minting process. Is that like a separate company that's doing that? Is that
so
tied into? I mean, how do you go about? Let's say I created an NFT. I'm an artist. I created an NFT. I want to make it an NFT. I want to sell it. I got to get it minted. Where do I go?
So to kind of unravel that a little bit and put it into fewer steps, it's like before you put it into a minting platform, it's just a piece of art at that point, right? It's a 800 by 800 pixel, whatever that predetermined size is. The process of uploading it to one of these platforms and turning your image in and whatever tenants you write into it, right, into that line of code for Ethereum is the minting process.
Okay.
That's not a secondary thing that happens after you create the NFT. To create the NFT is to mint it.
Okay.
Yeah. The minting is just that's just the vernacular for creating an NFT is to mint it.
Now,
right? That's
is
like the
Ethereum always going to be, is there like a contract that Ethereum's always going to be attached to NFTs, or is other cryptos going to?
No, they were just a front runner into that technology. No, that's open source. So like Solana is another one that a lot of, and if I'm saying that wrong, I apologize. But there's a host of other blockchains that are cryptos that are trying to get into that business. So it's not like as of today, it's not as though like Ethereum holds exclusivity to it, because it's not a patented process. Just like the topic or the core thing of blockchain is not patented. It's just a system of code for a public ledger, right? And so an NFT is the same idea.
Yeah. So to tie it into sports cards real quick, Topps did a couple series of pack releases that were NFT, and those were attached to Wax.io, which I think it's Ethereum based. Is that Ethereum based?
I think so.
Yeah.
So I mean,
I think most folks are going with Ethereum because that kind of thing where they've been doing it the longest, and so it's a security issue. And not to mention that like the last thing you want, Ethereum ain't going anywhere. It's second place only to Bitcoin.
Right.
And so the last thing you want is to create a priceless NFT, and then to your point earlier in this conversation, Doug, the core cryptocurrency that houses it goes kaput.
Right.
Then you do lose your NFT.
Right. So yeah, you'd be kind of taking a risk if you're like, let's put Shibu behind it or Dogecoin or whatnot as far as backing up my
Dogecoin
NFT.
ain't going anywhere, bro.
To the moon.
I sure hope not. Same with Shiba. Yeah, exactly. Correct. Yep. So it needs to be something that's got a solid foundation, right? Just so that you know that the security of, again, back to the Mona Lisa analogy, it'd be like, taking that and, just put it in the shed behind your house instead of in a place with top of the line security.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, so people love to display art. You're an art collector. You buy an art piece, use it as a conversation piece. You put it in your house, right? As far as like NFTs, are we going to see people putting
digital,
like just having TVs?
It's already happening.
And like just basically
that's already a thing.
So you put is there any type of like watermark on there?
That's what I was going to say. You have to know that so you're not just faking
exactly
it, right?
that is like a verification.
Yeah. So I don't know the high end technology behind that, but the long and short of it is the unique line of code that's in the ledger is your watermark, right?
But that can't.
It is what.
But that can't be displayed on a TV.
There should be. Hey, that's an opportunity if it hasn't already happened.
I'm saying like if you have some type of verification, even if it's so crazy it changes and it has a certain sequence that comes on the screen where you're like, that is the correct sequence.
Well, there's an opportunity
for that code to make sure it's verified.
If it hasn't already happened, I'm sure there's probably somebody working on this, but like a digital frame that it's like one manufacturer has the rights, and it can only be like if you go in somebody's house and
we're gonna edit this part of the podcast out.
Where you have like a green check mark on your art.
or you have
and they never saw Nick again.
A digital frame that could only show that specific code.
Yeah. Well, and I think how you would do that, not to give it all away, but in my brain, I think the way that you do that, because when you asked that question, Dan, the first thing that came to my mind was, well, you would, so say you're an art gallery that only does NFT digital art. Let's say that's a thing, because it very well could be.
It could be.
I mean, if with the prices that we're talking about, most likely. Yeah. But really what makes that attractive to the consumer that wants to come and look at that really has to do more with the artist behind that art being there. But a lot of anonymity exists in the blockchain. So the only way to verify that that's the case, or maybe not even, and this is kind of bigger thinking, maybe not even the singular artist, but maybe just all the people that own those NFTs being there to talk about that experience, right? But the only way to tie one to the other is for that auction house or art gallery to verify the wallet of the person's NFT. So basically for the gallery to stand behind, this guy standing next to this portrait or this digital art frame right here is the verified wallet owner of this ape NFT. That's how that would have to work.
And that's where maybe we could tie this into sports cards a little bit, because I think right now, I mean, the majority, I would say, of people that collect sports cards tend to be 40 plus, 30, maybe mid 30s to 40 plus and even older. So they're just not understanding quite how the market works. They want something tangible. But the problem with a sports card is it's small. You can't really put that on your wall. But if you were able to get a NFT of say, Michael Jordan or LeBron James, and it's in theory a card, but then it could also be displayed on a digital frame, then that might actually be enticing to some of these older collectors to be like, it's really hard for me to display my $400,000 LeBron James. But if I have a LeBron James NFT that can go on my wall and it could be 16 by 20 and I could put it right in my man cave.
Yep.
That might be,
well, and imagine
a
a space where the rookie card of tomorrow, not LeBron James, but the new rookie,
Bronny James.
Bronny James.
Yeah, there you go. Right. Imagine his new rookie signature comes with an accompanying, like maybe there's just the signature cards and those have their stated value, right, in the marketplace. But then there's an even higher value card, which comes with an inherent NFT version that has not only the ownership of the NFT, which is the same as the card and it's transactional and proved that you own that NFT for that rookie, but then, and maybe instead of just a card, it's a GIF of the background of the shot that picture was taken from. So it's a little GIF of him doing that layup or whatever, right?
Right.
But then to make it more interesting to the eye, because there's this intangible thing. But then that NFT also holds some sort of like, you get to go to the season opener of that team's season, blah 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 blah. So it's like this win-win-win thing, because you get the actual signature card, you get the NFT GIF, which you then hold ownership in the wallet of that, and you can prove your clout that way, and you can post that as your profile picture in Twitter, and it's really that you have that. And then on top of that, you get a season ticket, right?
So Panini, they already do something similar to that, minus the season tickets. They do have they call them like blockchain cards, and do them as like a direct auction to consumer, where there is a NFT which you're buying, but there's also the physical card that's attached to it, and you could think of it as two different things. And I think they're actually truly two different entities, because I think you could obviously sell the physical card that you got and keep
I just had a
digital.
really interesting idea about this, but I'm not going to mention it on the show.
Well, I think Panini jumped in.
I've got something boiling in my little brain.
Panini jumped in it early, but the problem with what they did is they initially released it as like what Dan said, where there's a physical card and then a digital card. Yeah. But then what they started doing later was putting just digital versions in the physical packs. So people actually thought they were still going to get both, but they were only getting the digital version. So they did it. They kind of confused the consumers.
Mm-hmm. And I wonder how this industry, like, a great comparison would be, in the music medium manufacturing industry, like everybody figured, okay, now all music is on MP3, it's digital. See you later, CDs. See you later, everything. It's just all going to be digital representations of the art. The manufacturing goes right out the window, so costs are cut astronomically, yada, yada. Well, that kind of happened, but what people didn't expect, the industry didn't see, was this huge resurgence in vinyl.
Right.
And it was because CDs went away because it was an impersonal medium for the art, and it didn't really sound different, and it wasn't nostalgic, nothing. And well, it was tangible, but not in a way that felt nostalgic or a way that felt personal.
Right.
But the vinyl format was big enough, right? The vinyl sleeve itself, the fact that it's like screen printed, the fact that the actual record can look a certain way and be different, that gave enough intrinsic value, enough tangible value to people that I think it was last year, vinyl has sold more than it's ever sold. And I think in a digital age, the fact that that's true is really interesting and kind of to your point. And I think with any new technology like NFTs or digital music for that point, I don't think it's an overstatement to say that big corporations, they don't always have exactly their finger on the pulse. They usually pay people 30 years their junior to be part of that.
Right.
And so I think a lot of times they over jump into stuff like this.
Mm-hmm.
They go, oh, do away with the physical medium then. It's all about this. The new hot word is this. And it's like, well, no, it's just fascinating in the early stages to see how that happens.
Yeah, and getting back to vinyl isn't a thing that has just come back recently. It's exploded recently. But
correct.
we both know people who were listening to vinyl 20 years ago.
For sure.
And they were
just like, you know, guys that have been collecting, you know, it's funny. I was watching this NFT thing and they were talking about sports cards. They actually referenced sports cards as an industry that has had a massive explosion. But you guys both know there's been people collecting these cards throughout this whole thing. It's no different to them.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, now my other question is, and this may be a kind of a dumb one. What protects you from not getting hacked and somebody just taking it from you, taking your NFT from you? Do they have security measures already in place for that?
I mean, yes. And well, in certain ways. So in the sense of someone getting into the root blockchain and literally stealing your shit out of the thin air, pretty hard to do. I might look back on this video in 10 years and laugh because somebody actually pulled it off and it was this gigantic scandal. But I think it would be easier to break in and steal the Mona Lisa than it would be to for most folks to probably hack.
Well, and then you got to sell it, right? So there'll be a blockchain of who's
and that's and that's it. And that's the problem. You can, for physical art theft, there's actually an underground marketplace for that. It's even harder to sell something stolen from the digital space because you can program a computer to monitor for that code transacting anywhere in the known computer universe. And so the second they watch that line of code transact, all of a sudden you've got the FBI.
And if you change the code, it's not worth anything.
Correct.
Yeah,
right?
I guess I just like to think, like, if somebody
yeah.
comes and robs me, at least maybe I have footage, maybe I get their license plate. I mean, this is completely anonymous of somebody hacking it, but I guess the protection would be, like you said, is that there's a unique code and it can't be resold. If it does, then you're going to get caught.
Correct. Like because Dan's point is perfect in that the second that you alter the code, you just fundamentally, it'd be like taking the Mona Lisa and putting a red slash across the front of it. Like, cool, now nobody wants it, so why'd you steal it in the first place?
Right.
It just defeats the purpose. And it might seem kind of silly to some to make a comparison between the two, but I mean, there's NFTs that are already worth $1 million. And so it's like, you know, people, you're right. Like, protection against theft is big. Now, the one exposure to theft is people literally getting their cell phones or computers stolen, and then someone getting on that phone, getting in your crypto wallet and transferring your NFT to them.
Yeah. Okay.
That's a problem. And that's actually probably the biggest exposure to any, even Ethereum, but any like Coinbase, because, you know, you don't hold your NFTs on Ethereum. Ethereum's it's not an app. It's not a forum. It's a currency, right? So you hold your NFTs just like you hold your cryptos on Coinbase, on MetaMask. MetaMask is like the biggest one right now that's doing other things. Coinbase has it, but MetaMask is the front runner. And so I think the biggest scare is someone getting into MetaMask, which is far easier to do than breaking.
And I think they give you a complex code that you're supposed to write down.
Well, yeah, they give you a succession of words, and
that's what it is.
They put them in a unique order, and they tell you do not save this on your phone. But
which I think is,
you know, which everybody probably takes a screenshot.
I sure
and
didn't. Yeah, right. You paste it in nice fat letters on your, you know, on your background so you don't forget it, right?
Yeah.
And so, like everything else, kind of a funny point to that is, like, right now it's a very youthful culture that's in the NFT game, right? NFTs still, and we're so early in this, like, NFTs are still only responsible for like somewhere in the hundreds of millions of dollars in volume, which is a lot of money, but comparatively, dude, Dogecoin is doing trillions of dollars of volume a day, right? Volume, not revenue, right? Like just amount of people that are transacting. So right now it's a really young audience. And so you have a high degree of tech savvy associated with it because it's just not easy to do. It's like early computers, right? But when this thing gets bigger and you start seeing an older demographic start interfacing with NFTs, you're going to see people taking their MetaMask password and using it as the background on their phone because they can't remember it. And they're not as, you know, it's just like how email used to only be computer guys. And then now it's everybody. And then all of a sudden there's princes from third world countries telling you to give them money, right? It's because they see the audience is so much broader. That would be my concern.
Now, also say you, like today, I buy an ape for 100,000 and 100,000 and you know, Ethereum. So now say 6 months down the road, you know, Ethereum I think right now is around 4,100. So say down the road the Ethereums were 7,000. Does that make my ape go up to the market price of Ethereum?
That's a good no. Not that that's a great question, Doug, and I don't fully know the answer to that. I don't believe that the stated value of the item adjusts to like inflation, or it's I think it is the USD equivalent of whatever whatever that Ethereum cost was at that time. Because otherwise, I mean, I don't know. It's a good question. I would assume not.
It probably would.
I don't think it would.
That would be dope, though.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Because you could buy something for 3 Dogecoins, and then Elon Musk sees Doge on Mars. All of a sudden, your picture of him is worth $8 billion.
But with that being said, and I can't wrap my head around the strategy, but I'm sure there is a strategy being displayed, knowing that Ethereum is going to go up. So if you bought something when Ethereum was $2,000 and then you sell it 6 or 7 months later, there's probably some kind of strategy.
The strategy is simple, right?
I think because you can buy Ethereum. I think if you're prospecting on Ethereum, you would just buy the.
But I'm saying if you're technically, like, say you bought it for 200,000 Ethereum and then you sold it for 200,000 Ethereum, there's probably some kind of savings if Ethereum had gone up.
Yeah, but
or some kind of tax shelter right now, because I don't think that they're being charged capital gains at this moment. Now, I know the government.
It's all about what's that? It's all about okay, let's think. I think an easier way to think about that is to think about it in the reverse possibility, which is that you buy something for 0.8 Ethereum. Well, each Ethereum is $4,000. So you just bought something for $3,500 or something, USD, physical currency. Then Ethereum drops to only being worth $30. So what happens in that scenario? Like, you had to have just lost money on that, because you can still only transact. You can only sell in Ethereum. So now you would have to get your money back in US dollars, you would have to sell that piece for the new equivalent of Ethereum, which at the time you bought it for 0.8 tokens. Now you got to sell it for 800 tokens.
Well, it's the same. It's like if you were to do a US currency in like pesos, right?
Right.
Like a can of Coke in Mexico is going to cost you 400 pesos.
Yeah.
Here it's going to cost you $1.50. At the end of the day, it basically 400 pesos is $1.50 or whatever the conversion rate is
at that time.
Time. So like it works out the same. It's just the monetary number that you're throwing in front of it and whatever you're comparing that currency to.
Well, and the relative level of volatility, I think, is the other thing to think about there, right? Like, pesos and USD is a great example, or, the euro and the USD. It's like, it fluctuates, but not like Bitcoin fluctuates, right? It's minting millionaires and it's minting people in the poorhouse daily. Right. And so I think that like everything else surrounding crypto, that's where the scary part of NFTs are, because someone's already has lost their ass on NFTs for sure, without a doubt. Right. And Gary Vee, for instance, says he's super excited about NFTs. He thinks they're the future of everything. And he thinks that 90% of them are total bullshit. Right. Like, there's only going to, at the end of the day, there's probably only going to be, just like everything else, a handful of front runners. Right.
And I think that goes in with the collectible market of being scarce. Right.
Well, and that actually ties into the crypto market as well. Like, in 10 years, there's probably, right now, how many cryptocurrencies are out there? Thousands, right? Thousands.
Yeah. Yep. More every day.
There will probably, in 10 years, no doubt crypto is going to be something that we are going to probably utilize on a day-to-day basis in our day-to-day lives.
Undoubtedly.
But there isn't going to be 1,000 cryptos that are going to be around.
Right.
There's going to be there may be 100.
For there to be, it's an interesting thought, right? Because there's a parallel between what's going on in crypto right now and what happened in the turn of the century United States and the Federal Reserve, right? It's the same idea, because there's a great book about this that's massively thick, and I've read parts of it, that, before the turn of the century, every state and every town sometimes had their own bank. And each one of those banks actually minted their own currency, and it was backed by whatever gold was in that bank in that town, right? And then this big consortium of high-end bankers and high-end railroad tycoons and everything, they got together in this clandestine meeting in a train car. Like, literally, this is how it went down in the middle of the night. And they said, we are going to make a centralized currency, and we're going to make a centralized bank, and it's going to become the Federal Reserve, and it's going to be federalized so that everybody uses the same dollar. Because you used to have a dollar that looked one way in Idaho, and then you went to Oklahoma, and it looked different, and it may not even be worth the same. And the same thing, to your point, Dan, is going on right now with crypto.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a new thing that there's a million little players in the scene. I don't think crypto can be internationally or even nationally adopted as a standard unless a lot of those players go away or just get, because it would be like the equivalent of me, drawing some paper up and being like, well, I got a new dollar, right? Like, right. I'm going to go buy a Coke with this. And people are like, yeah, but no. So yeah, you're completely right.
Yeah, interesting point. I could see that with the Federal Reserve creation, and I know the government has, and we're not a political podcast here, but I know the government has been trying to figure out how they can kind of regulate it. I know that's caused some of the Bitcoin drops in the past, and then they're like, no, we accept it.
I mean, there's so many, yeah.
Well, that's what crypto is all about, right? Is the fact that the government doesn't have a hand in it,
right?
It's basically
it is well, and to that same Federal Reserve point, it's sort of this full circle idea is that that happened, and then the Federal Reserve got so over, like the concept of banking in our country has become so back-asswards in that you actually lose money in banking when the whole point of holding your money in a bank historically since the beginning of time was that you're letting them borrow your money to let other people borrow money, and then they give you something in return. And now you actually lose money in that, right? And so people that became higher and higher education and technology and simultaneously disenfranchised with the banking industry now have created a decentralized currency that is blockchain, that they basically are like, I don't need a bank to hold my money because money's not real anymore anyway. It's all in my credit card. It's all in my app. It's not a physical currency. Hasn't been backed by gold in a long time.
Sure.
So yeah, I mean, so what the governments of the world play in this is a huge part of it. There was something that came out today about how I think it's Malaysia, some big leader in the religious community out there said that it was against religious law for Muslim folks to own cryptocurrency.
I mean, to your point, try going to your local bank and withdrawing $15,000 out of your checking account,
right?
Like of your money,
right?
Oh,
of
your
money.
Forget crypto.
Like, you're just like, I want to withdraw $15,000 cash right now.
Yep.
They're not going to do it.
Can't do it.
They're going
to, and that's the point of blockchain. That's the point of NFTs. That's the point of smart contracts, is to say, we don't need all of those ancillary parties between us and the thing that we need, whether that be a house or a car or a loaf of bread. It's like the United States and every country in the world has had intermediary parties that have gotten massively wealthy out of the transaction that takes place between the consumer and the good or service, right? And so now I don't know. It's like, to think that those same parties are just going to lay down and let all their money fly out the window is another conversation. But
well, yeah, getting back to that, we had this conversation, and everybody has these credit cards where you get X amount of miles, you get X amount of percentage back, and all this stuff. You have any idea who pays for that? Do you think the credit,
right,
the issuing bank for the credret card is just like
giving away money?
We're giving away money. No, it's the individual merchants that take the card. I've shown Doug this on our merchant statement for our credit cards. There is a surcharge for banks that offer any type of kickbacks,
and you don't have any idea, as a merchant,
you don't have any idea
no.
when you take that card that you're paying a surcharge.
And that's monopolization. I mean, there's not even a nice way to get around that,
Right.
Yeah.
It's like the merchants
and that's what they're, and that's what the blockchain and decentralized currency is all about. And then now to the next level, ownership on the internet. I think that was, when I was like reading stuff, that was really the thing, and continues to be the thing to me that was interesting, is just that, like, it's true. Like, you can buy things from the internet and get them to your house, and those are tangible goods. But all the things that exist on the internet don't really belong to you.
Right.
You don't have any way to say that is mine and nobody else's. It's sort of everything in a digital medium that gets uploaded to the internet, unless it's literally your voice or whatever, it's very hard. And even then, whose intellectual property is it? Because now it can be like YouTube. You podcast. Yeah, it's you and Dan on a podcast. but who can distribute that and own it and share it? And it just becomes all this weird stuff. But if there's a smart contract in blockchain to memorialize that belongs to you, all of a sudden this metaverse that everybody's pushing towards, that Facebook just completely rebranded their entire identity to get in front of, and spending $1 billion a year because they see it coming. Because if you're going to have a parallel universe on the internet, what's going to become the first hurdle to overcome? Ownership. Who owns the house in the metaverse in the internet, right? And so that is what smart contracts and NFTs are, right? You know, yeah, it's like having a house with a unique address was something that I heard today, and it sums it up pretty well, I think.
So what do you think, Dan?
Yes.
I mean, what do you think about sports collectors and NFTs? I know, you know, Panini has the NFT packs, which is actually separate from the blockchain, which is even more confusing. So they have like what we mentioned earlier, that they offer the blockchain with a physical card and then a digital card attached. So they did that for like a year, and then they're like, you know what? We're just going to make digital packs now, which are NFTs. Yeah. So they're almost like two separate entities. So I think the collector is super confused. You know, Topps doesn't only has one way of doing it, but then I think Topps is the end is inevitable for the Topps baseball license.
I think with the Topps, it like came out right at the perfect time where NBA Top Shot was at its height. So Topps jumped into it, and it did really, really well out of the gate. It was very popular. I thought, so if you open up a Panini pack, and I was actually going to do a screen share and show this, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it. But if you open up a Panini pack, it has its animation, right? It feels like the closest thing you can actually get to physically opening up a pack digitally. So
interesting.
The Topps version of it was like, okay, open up your pack. You click open, and then your cards just come up, and you're like, well, that didn't really feel good. The Panini one, you need it. Yeah. The Panini one, you have sound, you got all the senses going. You got sound, you have like, you know, the crackling of the pack opening, and then like, and then you can 100%, choose. Dude. And then, so for instance, it'll be like 3 cards that come out of the pack, and the cards are actually like backwards or not even shown, right? And then you click on it, you can show so one you get that reveal at a time. Yeah, that's dope. And every time you click on it, it like shakes and then it like flips over. It's a dumb thing, but no, as a consumer, you're like, I have that anticipation of like, what am I gonna get? Like, this 100%. Is exciting. So,
you know, I think that the one, and back to that thing of like early adaptation of new technologies, is you can't think that you can do away with human psychology with technology, right? Like, it doesn't matter. Yeah, they want the digital representation. They need it in the digital space, but they want to hear the pack ruffle. Yeah. And they want to be able to flip the card. Exactly. There are inherent things that don't look. Why do people get addicted to cigarettes? Why do people, you know, yes, there's a chemical component there and people will get addicted to nicotine, but anybody that's ever been addicted to cigarettes, I'll tell you, it's because of the physical thing of having to go outside and smoke, or, you know, go have a beer or whatever it is, right? The human brain latches on to those things. And so, yeah, you get a different level of security and you get a uniqueness and all this stuff. But yeah, if you make the thing with no continuity and it's just now very bland and it just feels like JPEGs on your computer in a file, you're missing the point. Yeah, a little bit. Like, people still care about the art. Otherwise, every NFT would be the same color. It would just be a blank file that said NFT, and then you would just have whatever was in it, right? But that's not the point.
Yeah, it's all about, you know, giving a show, dressing it up a little bit.
It's like, actually a beautiful thing from this like sort of you know, internet artist person standpoint. It's like where the rubber meets the road between the highest level of technology and independence and security and artistic creativity. You know, that didn't exist in the blockchain because as a currency, because it's just finance. But now you're actually putting in the human spirit into that. I think that's pretty interesting.
Yeah. And getting back to where I think it's going to go, I think the NFTs and the hobby, I think they are going to expand. I think we're going to,
I think nobody's had a good enough idea to stick.
But I also think that what you were saying before, everybody is going to, there is a specific amount of demographic that is going to want the tangible card and just
for sure
are not going to be about the digital version, not going to be about the NFTs. But in order to stay current and get the younger demographic involved in it, you're going to have to transition and offer this NFT element.
Well, and that's the thing, obviously, is that these younger people may not have money now, but they're going to turn into what our generation is.
If they're playing that
that
NFT game and that crypto game,
Sure.
they're getting
But
that
I'm
money.
saying, and like, we're going to, let's
They're
fast
securing
forward
the bag.
Let's fast forward 20 years from now, and that might be I'm not going to say it's ever going to take over physical cards, but it'll probably be a lot closer because these guys are going to get involved now.
It'll definitely be a big player.
And it's going to create nostalgic, I remember when I was 20 and I bought that ape, or, I bought that blah, blah, blah. And now
I heard to your point, Doug, I heard an interesting statistic today that there is $300 trillion worth of inherent wealth to be handed off between the baby boomer and millennial generation in the next 20 years.
Wow.
So it is the biggest inherited wealth handoff in the history of our country.
Well, that makes sense because the baby boomers
are the richest generation.
Well, not only that, their families, they were having 5, 6, 7 people in the families, and now we have 1 or 2, right? So I guess we stop complaining about not getting Social Security if we have some of that. I mean, I guess if you're on the
it's just a redistribution of the same money in a weird way, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, unfortunately, there's going to be an inconsistency of where that money goes. But the point is that so you have this perfect storm scenario of a generation of people with an unprecedented level comparative to the previous generation of technological access and understanding, and also some of the highest level of inherited wealth ever.
Interesting.
And so you combine those two things, and it's like, so you have to put it bluntly, you have a bunch of really rich people that also understand the internet and want more digital assets and less physical assets.
Sure.
And so when you put those two things together, it's the perfect storm for something like an NFT. Crypto gaming is a whole other thing that's even more in its infancy. If you think that buyables and wearables and all that stuff are big now in gaming, it already represents like a $6 billion industry in the gaming world, right? It's just consumables, like buying that jersey or buying that gun in Call of Duty. But crypto's place in that, NFT's place in that is, I mean, the projections there are staggering.
So you're saying
every other
like a Fortnite guy, you have a Fortnite character and you're like, I'm going to buy the NFT Jordan shoes.
Because imagine this. Think about it like this. It already represents a $4.5 billion a year industry. And that's just buying guns that anybody can buy, right?
Yeah.
Or buying a skin, not even the gun, a skin for the gun. That 8 other players that are running, because it isn't really about the weapon. You'd make the game unfair if you made weapon NFTs that nobody else could have. But you run around a game and you saved up, or you bought in real dollars, $6.50, you bought a skin for your AR-15 that made it look all like cool pink, leopard print, right? Well, there's 8 million other people that can buy that same one. Imagine if you had that and you're the only one that owned it in the entire stratosphere of gaming.
It's clout. It's basically it's clout. You're rolling around the game and you're just like letting everybody know.
Right.
Yep.
I was able to buy
this
skin for this gun, and you know how much it cost.
Exactly.
So that basically
game streamers are already celebrities of Generation
Yeah.
Z. They're in movies. It's cross pollinated. I just watched that Free Guy movie with Ryan Reynolds, and they had a cross section of the biggest streamers had cameos in that. That's how big it is, right? I mean, these are multi millionaires doing game streaming, and so to think that they're not going to want that clout amongst themselves. And they have tons of money. Like, you don't even need the everyday Joe Schmo to pay $80 for one. You just need them to be fighting amongst themselves for the $1 million skins so that they get more market share on YouTube, so they get more market share on Twitch because they're the shit.
Yeah.
And the young kids want to follow the shit, right?
Makes sense.
It's crazy, man. It's
Unlimited possibilities.
It's going to be,
yeah, but I think back to the sports card thing. I think we're not there yet with a great idea. I don't like what Panini's done. Honestly, I don't like what Topps has done. Fanatics is coming into the space. Maybe they do something that catches. But I think that and Top Shot, it's a video, so it's not it's not a digital card. But I think we will get there. I just think the ideas have been,
for sure.
Let's just throw, like you were saying before, let's just throw stuff and see if it sticks. Another element that Panini I haven't even mentioned is that they have actual digital cards that have no blockchain on top of it as well. So they have digital cards with no blockchain that you can open up digital packs and gives you that same experience that Dan does. I fall victim to it. I don't know why I do it, but it kills some time.
Are you sure there is no blockchain attached to it?
No block. I mean, they are numbered.
I think there might be, though.
I don't think so.
Because
So they have those. They have the blockchain.
Do you
and
hold
then
them
they
in
have
a? Well, the only way they would be within blockchain is if you held them in a wallet.
I have them on the app.
But that app's not tied. That you don't link that app to like
No.
your MetaMask or
No.
Coinbase wallet.
No.
Then it's probably not secured with a.
So that's what
blockchain.
they originally came out with, like 8-9 years.
Well, they
or-
call
not-
it blockchain.
No, they don't.
They call it
It's-
Panini.
it's-
Panini calls like I think on the app it actually you go to blockchain.
No, NBA Dunk.
Oh no, we're talking about two different.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
So
we're
they
talking
came,
about
they
two.
came out with NBA Dunk first, and you could open up.
I don't have my phone on me, but if
Yeah,
you
you
go
could-
to Panini America,
You could basically open up packs and get great looking cards.
Yeah.
But so they did that first, and then they did. All right, let's do the blockchain where there's a physical digital.
Yeah.
And then they're like, wait, let's do the NFT now. So there's like it's just
the
muddled up
but
the
the
whole thing.
NFT
Sure.
packs that are on Panini America's website, those are attached to.
Those are
blockchain.
blockchain.
Yeah, those
Yeah,
are
makes
so
sense.
those are the this makes it super confusing. I don't use that.
I know, and
I
do,
use
and
use
waste
the
money
other
on
one.
it.
So you're talking about
Well,
two
yeah,
guys who have
yep.
been in the industry for 10 years. Who,
Yeah. Imagine what the regular consumer's
exactly.
going through.
Like I'm like,
Yeah.
what is
Watch
that?
Watch
Why are
Well, and I think that this is like with anything, this is a great example of the technology moving so quickly
just
and these
got it.
companies trying to stay in front of it because otherwise they're going to get put in the dust. And so they keep making different iterations
Mhm.
to try to keep up with the advancements in it.
Right. So that's where I feel like we haven't had good. And then Tops, they did their packs like that Dan had mentioned earlier, but now their MLB license is going to run out in 3 years. So I don't think you have
Mhm.
any kind of consumer confidence for
And-
anybody to continue to
and
buy
that was
those.
based on
Sure.
like I talked about before, the wax.io, which
Yeah.
they are not
Mhm.
using that platform anymore.
Right.
So
Mhm.
I don't know if like if you had those packs, like you could only sell them on that platform, but it's not a platform
Well,
that
what I
they're
think is
currently
what I
gonna
think
be
is
using.
interesting though is like to your point earlier, Doug, is like, yeah, okay, I go buy an NFT and it's housed through Ethereum's blockchain, and I feel really secure about that because if you can't crack Ethereum, you're not going to get my NFT, and that's pretty much nobody.
Right.
No one's very few people. I think they've had one break in. Ethereum was the one that got hacked at one point. But that being said, comparatively, but if I go get a Tops.io card, what blockchain is it through? Because you're not signing into it's not going to your Ethereum wallet, right? Because you're not buying it with Ethereum, and that's
I
and
think
that
you are
inherently,
buying
too-
it in Ethereum, but I think
I
the
think
marketplace is through.
But how is that working? Are they transacting Ethereum transactions for you?
I think so.
Because that doesn't even make any sense. No, but that is the whole reason why decentralized banking exists.
Well, I think your
because
initial
that way they can't do that.
your initial transaction for the NFT pack, I believe,
Yeah.
is in regular currency, if I remember
Okay.
correctly. Right. But then if you go into the marketplace to sell it, then it's only through
Okay.
Ethereum.
was
I
it-
believe.
Interesting.
was it Ethereum or like ADA, like Cardano or Cardano, whatever. I don't know. Like,
Well, and I think too,
again,
there's
it's one of
this,
those.
like,
It's one of those things where, like, I feel like, and getting back to what you were saying, where like nobody in the card industry has come out and really gave the marketplace, the consumer, like the wow factor, and
Right.
like, wow, I really want to be a part of this, because there is no physical thing that you have to develop.
Mhm.
It doesn't take a lot of manpower to get something out in the marketplace. So it's like,
Mm.
I feel like it's always been rushed.
Yeah, and then
Sure.
yeah, I agree with you there. And they
As
use
with
the
a
same,
lot of
they use the
digital
same
Yeah,
designs.
assets.
They use the same designs that they use on the physical cards too. So it's just like, oh, grab.
Well,
that
because they're
Photoshop.
not really concerned about providing customer value in that scenario as much as they are just making sure they had a foothold in the
Yeah.
marketplace.
Yeah.
You know, they're planting a flag at the top of a hill in the middle of a war. They're just like, this is ours, and we're just going to defend this. And it doesn't matter if it doesn't look pretty right now, right? But, you know, the other thing I think about, too, is, you know, doing something like breaking where you have, okay, so you have the odds with the cards, and you have the cases, and then you open packs, and you understand that there is a chance of getting something out of that, right?
Sure.
But there's a guarantee that there's something valuable in there, but there is a randomness to it, which
Sure.
provides the excitement of the experience, much like going and playing blackjack at a casino, right?
Sure.
But now you're talking about, and this is a big deal in the gambling industry, you're talking about going and playing blackjack online. Well, now that randomness comes into question because, you know, it's one thing to be opening physical cards where they're just packing them and they know, you know, in all these millions of cards, they know where the good ones lie, but you don't. And because of the distribution, it does create a random sequence, right? It creates that randomness that can result in somebody coming up. But if you're going to do card breaks online in a digital NFT format, who's to say that they don't completely controlling.
Sure.
There is no randomness.
Yeah, they almost need
It's
to.
like playing a digital slot machine. It's like they know exactly when they're going to.
Right. There almost needs to be some transparency in how their algorithms are decided. You know,
100%.
like I think if you go on the website that we use is random.org, they explain how they do their algorithm for, which is it's self-populated by the user anyway. It's not like they're populating a list for you, but you know, they explain their algorithms. And I think that does play into transparency.
Yeah, you'd have to, because otherwise, you know, there would, I mean, just like anything else, it's like, look at how bad Robinhood's gotten drug, rightfully so, through the mud in the last year for throttling their stuff. Yeah. Imagine if a company like Topps felt like they were giving out too many valuable things because the volume of people participating was going up, and there has to be a statistical probability of winning.
Sure.
But now they're devaluing their NFTs because they're giving away too much in volume, so they start throttling their service back. Well, now people are going to be like, it shouldn't matter. If you've got the volume, you know what I mean? Like sometimes the value can't pace the volume. And so it would become a tricky thing. I don't it's going to be interesting to see how somebody bridges that gap.
For sure.
Thank you for checking out our content here at Mojo Break. Make sure you hit that subscribe and check out mojobreak.com for your upcoming group break needs. We have pick your team style. We have random. Everything is guaranteed to fill, and breaks are going off nightly and daily.